Pushing live now. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the What's on It Elephant and Castle Facebook page. I'm Nick from Retribe, and there's Melissa and Mago from Retribe, and also Laura, who's joining us from Talley apps. Lara, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. I'm doing good today. Yeah, I'm glad to be alive, breathing, and I'm just grateful really for a lot of different things. So I'm good.
That's a good place to be in.
Yeah, it is a good time. We'll get into that a little bit. Mel, I know you're a little bit under the weather, but Mago's looking after you.
Yes, this girl's not leaving my side, which is also just the most lovely, tender, beautiful thing in the world. So she's holding me down as I navigate whatever it is that's happening for me.
That's good.
Amazing. Okay, it's good. I know she hasn't left your side all morning, so that's amazing. Yeah. So Lara, first of all, we've had you on before. You're a co-founder of Talley apps, of the Talley app. Can you kind of give us a little rundown again for people who didn't hear you last time about, where how you got to where you are with Talley apps, and also the fact that the Elephant and Castle was part of your community for a little while. Just kind of give us a little recap of who you are.
Yeah. So my name's Lara Cena. I actually grew up around Elephant Castle on Rockingham Estate. So it has a lot of ties to me. And whenever I go past there, it just makes me feel very emotional. I'm the founder of Talley app, and Talley is basically a place where we connect people going through emotional distress to other people who've been in similar situations before. And I came up with the idea of Talley when I was going through my own personal experience, personal struggles. And in 2016, I went through a period in my life where everything kind of happened all at once. I went through a demotion at work. I went through money issues and relationship issues as well. And as a result of everything, I kind of didn't want to speak to like family and friends too much about my situation. I really wanted to speak to people that had been there, but then I wanted the opportunity to do so anonymously as well. And I just didn't find anything that kind of fitted exactly what I wanted to do. Although I did do therapy, which Talley is not a substitute for therapy. But it's basically giving you a community of people that you can connect to and have been through similar things as you've been through. So it's a speaker kind of listener community. Yeah, so that's what Talley is about.
That's some powerful stuff. I mean, as the world has kind of shifted, we're realizing that there is this kind of innate healing and reflection that happens with just, not having to do these formalized, institutionalized, medicalized approaches to therapy. Like therapy is just being able to talk in safety, right?
True.
Right. At least from my perspective, to be able to express it in whatever safety that is, and like just come as you are without feeling the pressure to fix kind of
right. Yeah.
Right. I think, yeah, that's why Talley for me feels like so important, especially given how the world has kind of shifted.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's also about finding a safe space. Yeah, it's about finding a safe space. And I think more and more, especially with 2020, we've all learned the importance of that. Yeah.
I know for me in my journey, it wasn't until I started to, because we're all kind of everybody's brought up with these ideas that as an individual, we can sort out all our own problems, and that reaching out for help is somehow a sign of weakness. And, that's why one of the biggest hurdles for anybody is being able to ask for help, and also being able to recognize that inside of their body is some kind of discomfort. And for me, it took me a long time to be able to get to a group of people who were going through similar struggles than me. And even within that group, it wasn't until I found a connection with two other men, who were similar in age and similar in experience, where finally I started to let my guard down. Right. And I was able to become vulnerable enough to say, this is what happened to me when I was a kid. This is what happened to me when I was a teenager. And then these two other guys were like, wow, yeah, you know, that happened to me too. And I don't think there's ever so much of a powerful thing than, oh, I get that. I get what you've been through.
Yeah.
Because there's so many organizations out there that will link people together through a common interest. You know, if you want to learn how to do something and you're interested in it, there's so many things. And I have no accountability really to go through that. Maybe I've paid some money or something, but when it's something like Talley, and you know, like I don't want to let those people down.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're building, I think, is incredible, because it's creating accountability for people to actually come and listen. And so how has the evolution, like over the last, you know, 4 or 5 months, like how is because I know it takes a little bit of time to create that kind of trust through the vulnerability. What is the evolution that you've seen over the last few months with Tally Apps and with your talks?
So it's, well, with the whole thing of lockdown, coming out of lockdown, going back, well, almost going back into lockdown again, it's kind of taken, like, it's a bit of a roller coaster, right? And it's about, we're just finding it's about consistency for us. And even if at the beginning of the year, I think there was a lot more, you know, people in our talks and needing our talks. And right now it then took a dip when everyone kind of all of a sudden went all out. And now we're seeing people return a lot more. And I think it's, for us, it's just consistency. And it's just about like making sure that even if one person shows up, we show up for that one person. And that's kind of what's important to us while we build our platform, where we can then keep the community all together in this one place. So we're keeping it consistent. And when we get like one person, or when we get a few people sending us a testimonial or saying, oh, this really helped their day, or this really taught them something, or changed their perspective about something, we know we're doing something right. So I think it's just consistency for us, really. Did I answer your question?
Nice.
Yeah,
it did it. I'm just going to come in with a second one, because you talk about how you're building your platform, which I know you've done a crowdfunding campaign that was successful. Can you tell us about that and how it went, and you know, what it felt like when you actually hit that target, and knowing that you're going to be able to build this platform? So there's that question, but then also it's kind of, what is the intention for the platform, and how is it going to reach more people? 2 parts.
So it was really good. You know, I've never done any sort of crowdfunding in my life, and a rewards crowdfunding is almost like asking people for money, which for me was like kind of really weird at the beginning. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this. But it's funny how people are amazing, and people would actually like give you tips and support you. We had so much support. Thank you guys as well. Yeah, so we had so much support, people giving us tips on how they've done theirs, and just reaching out to strangers, people we've never spoken to or know nothing about us, and they're willing to give us time and just give us a few tips on how they did theirs. So it was amazing. It was a very big group effort. The old Tally team really would take turns doing like champions for each day, and it was amazing when we reached our target and reached it early. So we kind of went a bit over our target, which was really good. So now with the PWA, so we're building a progressive web application, and the aim with that is that we're able to do not only our Tally talks, but also able to do the one-to-one secure conversations, and make sure that people, because it's really important, the nature of what we're doing at Tally, that people know it's really safe, they're safe with us. And if we're saying you can do this anonymously, we need to have the back end tools to like back that up, and make sure that people can actually trust us, because that's what we're selling at the end of the day. We're selling trust. So we've basically gotten on board a few more volunteers, and it's amazing how many people are willing to give their time, and we're working together. We're now a group of around 12 of us, many of which are volunteers and give like 10 hours a week or something. And people want to be a part of this. So it's amazing. It's really amazing. The way people are just like pouring out their time and money as well. They've put out their money. So we're basically like, this is going to be a success regardless. Yeah.
I mean, it's already been quite the success in terms of, like you mentioned before, even if it's one person showing up to say
Yeah.
like, oh, this is what's happening, like that is a win.
Yeah.
Like on such a like powerful, deep level, that's a win.
Yeah.
Nick, did you have a follow-up again, or am I asking? Can I ask?
You can go. Yeah, you can ask.
I don't know why I'm asking you permission to.
We're so polite, aren't we?
Oh, well, I'm so polite. I think I wanted to talk a bit more. Well, you mentioned consistency, but then also this idea of it being an anonymous platform. And maybe if you could speak more to I don't know if you feel comfortable with this, but like the kind of security and trust that's internally cultivated, knowing that it's an anonymous kind of interaction. Have you had any insight into why that platform works for some people and what that could be about?
Right. So with Talley, you don't have to be anonymous, but a disclaimer, if you do choose to like disclose your details, it's totally up to you. But we found that a lot of people, and the kind of the market that we're gearing towards, a lot of people associate a lot of there's still a bit of shame associated to when you're going through issues. And to be honest, that was the same experience for me. It takes time for some people to like let their guards down, and even when they're speaking to somebody they don't know, right? It takes time for people to kind of calm down and say, okay, you know what, I would be a lot more vulnerable, and revealing your personal details or revealing your name or letting someone know anything about you, it's such a vulnerable place to be at. And I think what we're trying to do at Talley is to provide it for all. So even if you don't want to, reveal those personal details, you still have somebody to speak to. You're still able to do that. So it was important for us to keep that there, and allow people to be anonymous if they can, if they want to. With mental health and with it being there's still a lot of cultures, a lot of people of color as well, who also like struggle with being a bit more open and speaking openly about their mental health. There's still a lot of taboo around mental health in so many different parts of the world as well. And the fact that we were able to provide a platform that they can use anonymously if they wanted to, using a nickname, right? But the thing is, they're not anonymous to us, but they would be anonymous to the people interacting on the platform. And that's where that trust kind of comes into that, where they have to trust us that we've got your best interest and we understand how you want to interact with people on the platform.
Sorry.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, it also allows them a sense of agency and authority within their, like, choosing their own path to, if you want to call it healing or realization or discovery, which I think is something that's always like kind of overlooked in kind of the mainstream, especially like dominant whiteness dominated of healing, where it's like it's this kind of, this is the way to do it, and just listen to me and I'll be the guide for you, rather than recognizing this inherent kind of knowing and wisdom in the individual, and also the intersectionality of all the parts of this person's life, saying you get to drive the car, I'm just going to sit in the passenger seat with you. And I feel like with having that option is, I mean, this I'm speaking from as a therapist, but also as somebody who used therapy and still uses therapy, is like it gives the power back for especially lots of people who haven't felt a lot of power or control in their life. And I think it's such a powerful tool that's like, I don't think really it's so subtle, but it's the most powerful, to say, you tell me how you want this to work.
I totally agree with you. Like, with my experience, one of the things that mattered a lot to me when I was going through my own journey, or it's been being in control of your own narrative as well.
Yes.
So being in control, even when everything around you is going pear-shaped and everything is going like it's a catastrophe, you being able to control that one thing, which is your own narrative and the way you you show up to the world is really important, or was really important to me. And so I think giving people the power to choose is so important. Like it can make all the difference. And so that's why it was important for us to keep that option there.
Beautiful.
I think it's wonderful because it addresses this kind of thing that, again, kind of what I alluded to before about this, our inability in these early stages to be able to ask for help. And I think the word that I want to kind of throw to both of you, really, and you can maybe both answer this, is this idea of shame, you know, and blaming ourselves for the things that maybe other people have done to us, and shame and being able to ask for help because we don't want to be embarrassed. And I think that's what's so great about what you guys do, is giving the people that, at least that option, just to get their foot in the door, you know, to be able to, like you say, taking power back is making that little bit of a positive move towards some self-care and some self-awareness. So maybe both of you can kind of say, in your early stages, you know, Lara, about how you ended up, like where you knew that anonymity meant so much to you. How did you feel? What were you carrying into that kind of shame aspect or embarrassment or something like that? And maybe Mel, you can follow up with your experience with that too.
Yeah. So what I found, it's you actually go on a journey, right? Or you kind of start. It's a bit to do with uncertainty when you're in the midst of or in the eye of the storm. There's a lot of uncertainty. And that uncertainty, it's a really scary place to be when you feel uncertain about what's going on, or the choices you're about to make, or if you even want to continue, you know, living the way you're living. So there's a lot of uncertainty, which, you know, people around you might be judgmental towards, or you're just very kind of very sensitive, and you might feel really insecure at that time to kind of open yourself up to people's opinions, even if they're fair or not fair, or very judgmental. And I think that was very much my experience. But I find this, right, when you start to go through it, and when you get a door, like your feet in the door, and you take that very first step, as scary as it may be, and that first step for me was, you know, being able to talk about things really privately and very confidentially. And then I just felt so much better and felt, okay, I can do this. I can. And that was those were the steps I took. And that process of healing. Now I then talk about my story very openly, and I'm able to like then help people with what I've learned. So it's a journey, and sometimes, sadly, it can start really, you know, with shame, with you feeling shame about what you're going through, and feeling uncertain about what the future kind of holds. And if there are more avenues where you can take that very tiny step, you know, even if it's being anonymous, and saying something to someone anonymously, where it's just like like, this is how I feel, right? And very slowly you're then able to say it to the world, like, this is how I feel, this is how I felt, because I no longer feel like that, and you know what, this is my story. And then you can then inspire people with that story. But we need, not everybody's gonna be able to be bold and out there from the very start, so we need to give avenues for people to speak in a hush. Yeah.
And I want to add too, like, I can't remember her name, but there's this beautiful writer, and I'm so annoyed at myself, but she speaks of I can't even remember right now, but something about the single story, or so, I'll put it in my brain and we'll link it. But I think what else is so important too is this recognition that there's not just one narrative that we have to stick to about ourselves. So we can have shame, but we can also have courage, right? I think there's a lot of like mainstream ideas around narratives. And I think in how I work and try to operate my own life is like acknowledging the different kinds of stories. Like, you know, it's not just this one thing and that's you for the rest of your life. And but I think a lot of times we can get stuck in our own idea of who we are based on one experience. And I think that really links to Nick, or this conversation around shame is like, for me, what happens with shame when it's very present is in my life is often because it's linked with other people's expectations of me, rather than me stepping into my own. Yeah, I'm a hot mess sometimes and I'm weird, but I'm also together and skilled and I can be all of the things, not just one or another. But when I get stuck in the shame kind of spiral of things, it's because I'm not listening to my self, and I'm not giving full permission for all the parts of me to kind of be expressed, right? I'm like thinking, well, I need to live up to what that person wants me to live up to, or everything bad in the world is because I'm bad in the world, which was like a very old narrative of mine. But it's like this place for, or the opportunity to, like, as you so beautifully said, is like to let people share their stories, is to know that we all come with so many chapters, right? Like, that's what the beauty is. And the chapter 1 is not even close to chapter 27.
Yeah.
Well, we need a chapter 1. So let's give space for chapter 1, but know that that's not the end of the story. I'm going to use that analogy. I'm going to stop right there. But that's pretty much it. Like, shame, it often can be with living up to other, like not stepping into our own authenticity and power and righteousness. Not in a weird way righteousness, but like that we're all powerful.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I feel like I want to interview, like, this is like, I want to ask you both questions because they're firing off of this kind of thing of like, if there are people who are watching this that are in a certain chapter of their life, they might be at chapter 1, they might be at chapter 27, they might be somewhere in the middle, or chapter 50. But what you both have kind of alluded to is this idea of the journey, right? Where's the starting point? What is the word that comes with the starting point? Is it hope? Is it defeat? Is it acceptance? Is it trust? You know, what starts the journey for somebody to go, like, I want to be at chapter 27, and then trusting the person at chapter 7 for them to say, hey, this is your journey. You'll get to chapter 7 in your own time. And that's the beautiful thing, is that, you know, sometimes we have expectations that I want to be I want to be able to talk like you, Lara. I want to be able to talk like you, Melissa. I want to be able to whisper like you just did, Lara, because it was amazing and I loved it. Melissa, I want to be able to kind of just stick you like you because it's amazing. But I'm not you, and I'm not where you are in your journeys. I'm me, and I'm on my journey, and kind of, how do we embrace that, accept it, and trust the journey? You know, so again, both of you guys can kind of think about that and answer it. And Lara, I'll kind of put that to you. Like, how do you kind of enable people to trust the journey and enable to make the first step?
I think what I always say is, you know, challenges. Like, I'm so grateful for the challenges I faced. I'm so grateful for allowing myself to accept the place I was in 2016 when I was going through my challenging situation, allowing myself to be present in that, and allowing myself to acknowledge that there's a journey I need to make. And I think being present is something I've totally realized, like being present where you are, accepting and acknowledging that place where you are in the middle of the storm is so important to then become this person, whoever you know, that chapter 27 person. It's so important. If you don't go through chapter 1, soak in, absorb chapter 1, and then take the challenge to go on, in a way, I have a hope that you can then go on to chapter 27, go on to chapter 2, go on to chapter 3. And if you don't do that journey, you can't be your type of perfect, because you can't be anybody's kind of type of perfect. And perfect is not really a thing, but you can't blossom to the flower that you're meant to be if you don't understand and appreciate your challenges. It's such a beautiful thing to be challenged by different situations. And even when your mental health is challenged, it's your body telling you something. It's you being more aware and learning about yourself. And I think it's so important. It is so important. So to everybody, to all the different things that challenge me, and everybody that like helped me be in a situation that I was challenged or I will be challenged in, I'm grateful when I do look back. At the present moment, I'm like never grateful, but I'm grateful when I do look back, because they've helped me like learn a new part of myself, and they've helped me also rise to the challenge. And those challenges, man, you know, I thank everyone that's helped me rise to each challenge, because literally it's birthing so many beautiful things in my life.
Yeah, I think hearing you speak is reminding me of this, a lot of things, but there's this like there's need to be this balance between acceptance and surrender, right? Because we need to kind of dance that dance, like this is actually the reality. I'm currently, the tsunami is active and present and I am drowning, and so if I know I'm drowning, what do? I tread water, I ask for life support, I float, you know, and like that's the piece. And then also, like with water analogy, which is very comforting for me, sometimes you just gotta float and go with the tide, right, rather than fight it, because that's when you drown.
Yeah. Ooh.
So like let's just flow, and like that's the piece of it. The resistance to what's happening causes so much more pain than actually saying, you know what, shit is not okay right now, but here we are. And I think just saying that out loud is the only little interruption we need to start that kind of like, okay, if this is what's happening, now what? So I often think, for me, and I've been putting into practice a lot the last couple of weeks, is like when things come up that are old wounds and old ideas and like some cellular trauma that's trying to be present, instead of me being afraid of it or like resistant to it, I try and be a little curious about it. Okay, so my throat is closing, I'm afraid to say something, tell me, oh, I wonder what that could be. Just being curious changes already our relationship with ourselves, because what we know, I think, through the last 6 months of this world kind of shifting, is the fact that we've been forced to meet ourselves in very different ways, which maybe we weren't like consciously calling in to be like, yeah, you know, I'm going to go on a meditation retreat for 6 months in the mountains of India, and I'm going to come. Like, we didn't really invite this world into our existence, but it's happened. So we've been forced to meet ourselves. And like the stuff like Laura, the last time we talked, I was not even the same version. And I think for you it's probably true, and Nick too, we were just such like little versions of who we are now, and that was only a couple of months, right? So I think we can see things as this opportunity to meet ourselves in newness, in our bodies, our minds, but also the new environments that have been created. Then that could create opportunity, rather than, you know, like what's the opposite of opportunity? Rather than resisting it, can we see it as an invitation to learn something about ourselves? I don't know if that answered any of the question, but that's what my mind is going.
I love that. I really love the analogy of floating. I think it's so important to know that. Also with time, floating also reminds me of time taking you somewhere, and also just trusting.
Absolutely. Yeah, that whole surrender piece, right? Like release into it and watch where it can go in ways that you might not have known. Because if you're just treading water, sure, you're surviving, but floating is actually allowing you to get somewhere else that's probably a bit better, for lack of a better word.
These analogies are making me think about, you both have talked about being present, and that this is ultimately kind of the bit where we can get to where, you know, we're not in so much fear, we're not in so much any bad habits, we're not in so much judgment, we're in acceptance. But it also, to become present, you both have alluded to the fact that it takes action. So even if treading in the water is an action of, again, going through those chapters, right? So kind of what are the actions that, again, you guys can both speak to this, but what are the actions that you've taken and still practice to help you become more present, or as present as you can be during all these different circumstances?
Alyssa, do you want to go first?
No, you go ahead.
I think the actions I do are kind of like the daily and weekly activities that I do to kind of just keep myself grounded. It's meditation. I'm a woman of faith as well. It's then praying, and it's also leaving the quiet time. So the quiet time to just reflect is so powerful, where you just reflect and try to also connect the dots. And I think that time for reflection, where you're not per se meditating or praying or reading or doing anything, where you're just sitting and you're being still and just thinking. I do this thing where I daydream a lot, and it kind of works for me to be present, because although I'm not like being present in that scenario, but when I sit and I daydream and I just think and look around me and just allow new ideas or thoughts to flow, I can also like use that to connect dots, for like looking backwards and thinking backwards, and that just helps me be grateful many a times. And that gratitude is such a really, really powerful vibration for me. And that keeps me hopeful and going.
Mel, do you want to add to your bits?
What was the question? How do we stay present?
Yeah, well, no, it's how do you get present? What are the actions that you've taken in your life that have enabled you to kind of to let go and to surrender and to live in the moment?
Yeah, the first thing that wants to come to mind is like lots of plant medicine, meditation, shamans, like healers but that's not really the answer. But that's been for me really important. I think though the biggest learning for me to be able to come back to myself in the moment of time is to not attach meaning or identity to a thought or feeling I have. So in the past, I would say like, oh, I'm feeling like, or I have a thought that I'm not good enough, right? Like, oh, there's better therapists, there's better partners, there's better sisters and daughters. I don't know, that's a weird example, but like this I'm not good enough thought, I became attached to it being a truth about me. And so what I think my practice has been to really bring me back to my own being in the moment is to like actually say, that's a thought. It might not be true. It's just a thought I'm having, or it's a feeling I'm having. It's not an indicator about my worth as an energy, as a human. It's just a thought. So I feel like that's a really important practice, is to say, oh, I'm thinking. And you hear this in meditation too, right? There's a lot of meditation, like if you're thinking, if there's a thought arising, say, I'm thinking. And that's it. And you kind of detach from the impact it can have on creating this identity and meaning about who you are. So that's like a really important practice. Acknowledge, oh, it's a thought. It might not be true. And you don't need to answer why it is or why it might not be true. Just, it might not be true. And the feeling, like this is a feeling, and we all know feelings are real, but they're not your identity. They're not who you are. They're a thing that happens because we're human. So that's the practice. The other one I would suggest, or not suggest, I use, which like could throw a lot of people off, but for me, trust me, it's been like a game changer, is that when I'm feeling moments of anxiety and panic or paralyzed with fear from old trauma kind of patterns, right, I say out loud to myself that I love myself. So for example, people who work with me one-on-one, like they get this a lot, but here we go. It's like, I will say, oh, frightened Melissa, I love you. And I'll block me out of the panic that will happen, right? Because when you're in a state of triggering and activation, your brain doesn't know present time. All it knows it's happening and it's real and it's a threat. Yep. This is what trauma does, right? So I think for me, a really important practice is calling myself out in the moment with love. And if love is not the right word, you could say kindness, could say compassion. For me, it's love. So I'll say like, oh, anxious Melissa, I love you. And all of a sudden the anxiety is like, okay. And it becomes less of a kind of a force, because all it actually wants on some level, without me going too into it, is to be acknowledged. The shadow bits of us want to be acknowledged. So if we do it, then we're snapped back into like present time.
Yeah.
So I could, yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, I said I love that. I love that. I'm going to try that more. I'm going to try.
Yeah. Reach out to me if you want to go more into like the thinking behind it. But it is for me quite powerful, is loving those bits of ourselves that our culture, society, all the things tell us that we should be ashamed of, because we're not, we need to be stronger and better, more together. Yeah, that's pretty much nonsense. We just get to love all the parts of us, right? And give it opportunity to grow and release without having to fight it.
Cool.
I'm going to add my little bit on how I get there, but the thing that I'm going to come into this after is something for you, something for you guys to think about is purpose or passion, or passion and purpose. So that's what I'm going to lead this into. So you can think about that while I kind of say what I've been through to enable me to, at the best of my ability, live in the present, was to address my fears. So I looked at, right from being a child and being very scared of my father, which I developed these mechanisms, these habits that would help me deal with that fear. And they ended up having consequences on other people. So I would end up at a very young age stealing and lying and manipulating. But I wasn't doing those because I was a bad person. I was doing those because I was a scared child who was developing these habits, defense mechanisms to be able to deal with that fear. So as I grew older, I hurt people along the way. And what I've done over the last 4 years is I've been able to recognize that these fears hurt people. So how do I help myself deal with the fears, which was like a lot of writing, writing out why I was afraid, how I had coped with it, and who I'd hurt along the way. And then being able to go back to the people I've hurt and being able to say, I was wrong to have done that to you. How can I make that better? So I go through this process of being able to not be so fearful, apologize to people who I've hurt in the past, and then continue a daily practice of praying and meditating and just trying to ask the universe for guidance to relieve me of the fear. And then if I no longer have those fears, I'm no longer in those defense mechanisms or bad habits where I'm hurting people. And that's enabled me to live. This is where I'm kind of going into the passion and the purpose, is that I have found now as a nearly 50-year-old man who had all these expectations and fears growing up, now to do my best to let those go and do my best to try to help people who are like me. And that's given me some purpose and passion that is completely different to what it was like 20 years ago. And that's enabled me to again, another tool to live in the present, to not be so fearful, because I've developed this place of gratitude, which you talked about, Lara, of being able to kind of turn gratitude into being able to be of service and help people. So with the kind of time running down, maybe if you guys could just illuminate us a little bit on your passions and your purposes.
Go for it, Laura.
So, a few years ago, I used to say this so much that I began to believe it a lot myself. So whenever someone would ask me what my purpose was, I would say I wanted to help people live their best lives. And I see that in everything I try to do, is basically giving people the tools to create the best for themselves, that they see fit of themselves. And I think it's Maya Angelou that said about leaving a legacy that people would not remember what you gave to them. I'm not sure exactly what the quote is, but it goes something like, people wouldn't remember what you do for them or what you give to them, but they would remember the way you make them feel. And And so making people feel something is very important. And I think feel something about themselves is really important to my purpose, and feeling empowered about themselves and loving themselves is important and a part of my purpose. And so whatever I do and wherever I go from this place forward is basically to give the people the power to be empowered and feel something, feel love for themselves as well.
Mm. Glorious. I think that I kind of, the essence of what you're saying is the same for me. I just haven't really articulated it yet in my being, because what I want to do is just remind people of their inherent greatness and worthiness. So it feels like for me, all I want to do is like polish people's shine. Like that's how I envision it. Is like we're already born shining bright, but then like the world happens and our lives, we experience things and we kind of, it becomes a bit dull and we muck it up. Not we on purpose, but it just happens. And so we're like in this process of unlayering and living in our own kind of prisons of our mind. And I think for me it's more of like creating freedom for people to exist in their own like beauty, and really letting them shine, without feeling like all shame or pressure. Just like you're just enough. Like that reminder is like you're just enough, man. Like that's okay. So whatever that means, I don't know the language around that, but it's like kind of caretaking their heart and their soul and like loving it back to their brightness. Oh, I should work on that. Yeah, I think there's a sentence.
Hey, I think the reason why we have all come together, I think that, Lara, we've seen our little community connect over the last few months is from all like-minded people who have gone through some certain chapters in their lives where ultimately they found their themselves in a place to go. There's nearly 8 billion people, beautiful souls on this planet, all born different, and with different cultural and ideological and social and economic and religious expectations upon them. But ultimately, we're all just beautiful souls that are trying to roam this earth. And we have been taught, because of capitalism and other kind of forces, powers that we don't really have control over, that we have to obtain certain things to be successful. And I think for me, it's about being able to help other men specifically unlearn all of these old ideas around these expectations. So ultimately, we can be in a place to go, why are we here? And I believe that we're all here to help one another, not here to take from one another. And I think that this is the journey that we're all on now. And I can see it in all of our eyes, is that really, how can we help you? And I wake up every morning, I go, universe, please put someone in my path. Please help me see the people that are in my path that I can help, which means get me out of my fears, get me out of my ego so that my eyes are open and looking down the street, or open and being able to receive a text message or a phone call from somebody when they need it. And I think that's my idea of purpose and passion along the way. It's just, hey, let's help one another rather than take from one another. And I know, like, we're, this is a specific month right now. We're Elephant and Castle in this Facebook page is about, celebrating Black History Month, which is something that I mean, I know me and Mel talk about, like, it's really every month, and but it's great that this is a month where where we can actually say hello to our allies and say, well, how can we help? And what's Talley doing and over the remainder of this month, and is there anything you want to talk to about Black History Month?
Well, at Talley, like you said, every month is Black History Month. At the moment, we are basically just focusing on our Talley talks, and at the end of the month there would be like a Talley talk specifically around like Black history. But with the rise of Black Lives Matter this year, we've done a lot of Talley talks around that, and that's something that we're continuously working on educating, and also trying to make mental wellness like a very key topic, because it's not one that is often taken as or prioritized in the Black community. So we're pushing that agenda very strongly at Talley. And we also realize that every month we need to celebrate Black history as well. So and celebrate ourselves as well, everybody really. So yeah, we're basically just putting Talley Talks on for Black History Month. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. So Lara, I've actually, we weren't Facebook friends before this. I've added you a Facebook request. So if you can accept it, please. And then I'll tag you in this. And then can you tell people how to get in touch with you and the Talley app? Yeah. And then we'll put those in the feed.
So the best way to get in touch with us, we are kind of looking for like listeners and people that want to join our community. So just go to www.talley, Talley app.com, and you can join one of our Talley Talks, and you can also like sign up to be a listener. And that's the best way to get in contact with us. Otherwise, it's gonna be on Instagram. Just DMing us on Instagram. Talley.
Okay, I'm gonna put that.
Yes.
I'll put those in the feed when we're finished. So if you just ping them to me, and then I'll put them in the feed. I was gonna do it now, but my laptop's lagging a bit. So yeah. Lara, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll talk to you again in a few months. And yeah, I know we keep trying to get little coffees and meetups done, but it'll happen when it's meant to happen. Yeah, definitely. Definitely next year. I have so much hope that all of this stuff would be behind us this year, and next year would all be out together again in more than 6. Yeah, more than groups of 6. So hopefully we will definitely do that next year. But this has been so much fun. I just wanted to say I've actually learned so much. I always I love speaking to you guys. Like I just learned so much as well, and it's been amazing. So I'm going to take on board loving myself and telling Lara, anxious Lara, love you. I love you. And I'm just going to take on board so much that we've discussed in this conversation. So thank you so much for having me.
Likewise. It's always beautiful to hear you speak, and your passion is like not even in question. Like you are doing what you are meant to be doing, and that's a beautiful thing to witness.
Thank you very much.
And don't hesitate to reach out if you want to chat.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to you. I think there's so much more. This is really good for my mental space as well, because you guys must find it as well as founders. Like it can get really difficult as well, and you need like reassurance and reassuring yourself and surrounding yourself with like-minded people.
Absolutely, call in your people. Always an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lara. And thanks to everyone at the What's on Elephant and Castle Facebook page. Don't forget to join us on this Thursday at 11 a.m. for our workshop on widening our circle. We'll see you then. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.